Good afternoon, everyone. So glad to see few of you. I think others are still during the lunch, but thank you so much for prioritizing your food over our inspiring and insightful, I hope, discussion today about making renewables cleaner. Let me present myself. My name is Alena. I dedicated my entire career to supporting the energy transition, and today I work as an investment principal at Sven Impact Fund for Transition, which is the first European fund dedicated to renewable gases. So we invest in hydrogen and biogas projects. Since the creation of the fund, we raised almost $500 million. We invested half of it, and many more projects to come. So let us start the session. Let the show begin. I already see the speakers here. Energy transition, urgent, we know. Actionable, we do. Energy transition implies many challenges here. However, there are solutions. There are four major levers we can act to go towards the 2-degree scenario. First of all, of course, introducing renewable energies, which is one of the topics of our session today. Renewable energies represent only 18% today, 4% nuclear, 82% is still fossil fuel energies. And we need to go to drastic change there to switch from this fossil fuels-based economy towards a renewable energy economy. And this transition will come at cost and at challenges. However, we already start to do so. This is the first lever to respect our carbon budget of 900 gigatons by 2100. The second lever is, of course, energy efficiency. However, with the projected increase in the population and the GDP, it won't be enough, and the energy demand will increase by 16% by 2050, despite the progress and future progress we will make in the energy efficiency. So we need a third lever there, which is carbon storage and usage. So CCS and CCU, maybe you will come to the sessions dedicated to it during the day. Those technologies needed to be implemented at scale and worldwide. And last but not least, the fourth lever to thrill through these energy transition challenges is switching to these zero emissions energy carriers, such as electricity and hydrogen. Basically, all these four levers will need to be implemented together and at scale. And if I can do a small dive on the fourth one, switching to electricity and energy, we will need an extensive storage there. So the Holy Grail storage. And with that, I'm very thrilled to welcome on stage three amazing speakers, which will help us to understand how energy storage can be done and can be introduced at scale here in France, in Europe, and globally. So please welcome, make a good round of applause for Aurélien, Mark, and Alexander here with me on stage. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for making your time here and now. So let me start by a small intro of yourself, and then we go to our panel discussion. So I'm very happy to welcome the closest to me, Mark, who is the CTO of Storelectric, which is a solution to store energy by compressing air in salt caverns and releasing this air when necessary. Next to him, we have Alexander, who defined himself as a technology geek. I loved it. And who is working today on Gouache venture, providing a solution for, you will show us, I already see it, new generation of batteries. And last but not least, Aurélien, who will explain us how the marine energy can provide us with extensive offshore, here onshore. And yes, gentlemen, very welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
So maybe let us start with you, Mark. Can you please explain me how your energy storage solution is is subscribed in the all palanquet of different energy storage solutions? We know that the two main axes for the energy storage to describe a solution is the energy, the quantity of energy we want to store, and the duration of the time we want to store it for. So Alexander will talk a little bit about batteries, and if you can explain us, where do you stand in?
Well, on those two axes, we are at the big end. We start at 40 megawatts and work up to multiple gigawatts of scale. And in terms of duration, our initial geologies, we will be working from 4 hours to 12 hours, and then we will develop other geologies that will take us to 2 weeks. But I would argue that there's a third and very much forgotten axis of energy storage, and that is grid stability. All the grid stability solutions like natural inertia, grid congestion avoidance, curtailment avoidance, and things like that, our storage is naturally inertial, which means that we can deliver with one of our plants concurrently a range of services that would require 6 batteries of the same size, because they can only deliver one of those services at a time.
Thank you so much. And maybe to continue on that, the cost of transition will be high. How cost efficient is your solution?
Well, we are at a scale and duration that really can't be rivaled by the likes of batteries, where our levelized cost of storage is about 1/3 of batteries. So it's where batteries aspire to be in the mid-2030s. And that's even assuming that we're only trading one of those 6 elements, the energy element. So our technology is of the appropriate scale and duration that you need, because we're effectively trying to displace hydrocarbons from the market, carbon and hydrocarbons. So we need a solution that's on the scale of carbon and hydrocarbons. And nothing that we're doing at the moment for storage, apart from pumped hydro, is on that scale and we are the only ones available cost effectively, widespread potential at that scale. And therefore, with our technology, the energy transition will be affordable, reliable, and resilient. And without it, it won't.
Well, that gives a lot of hope for me, because indeed diversification of the solutions to store a big amount of energy over a long period of time. Indeed, we cannot put pumped hydro everywhere on the globe. So yes,
Yes,
very,
and
very
even if you could, it would be 3 times the size and you'd be flooding valleys everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, and you gave me
3 times the cost.
backstage a very nice example just for you to represent the salt cavern. It's a big, massive storage. You can put Eiffel Tower in that. So a lot of compressed air and a lot of energy there. Thank you so much, Alexander. What is this? What did you bring? Your eco-friendly battery. Tell us more.
Yeah.
What is the most proud recent achievement you made with it?
So we are proud to achieve batteries that are 3 times less impactful on the environment than traditional batteries. Basically, this is a classical battery made for micromobility. So when I say micromobility, it's e-bikes, e-scooters, mopped, all these applications. And about 3 years ago, we did a big studies on batteries that were normally going to the recycling centers. And what we discovered is that all these batteries are made of the same cells, the same lithium-ion cells, which is basically a standard. You have the same format for all of these applications. And these cells are normally soldered together. You have glue, you have wires everywhere. And when you have a problem with a battery, most of the time you have a problem with 1 or 2 of those cells. And we design a way to create batteries where you can exchange those cells between the batteries. So it opens a new field of reparation of the batteries and also of the recycling of the batteries.
Yeah, that's a very hot topic. The recycling is not at scale as for now. The supply chains can be challenged in a way. So what is your approach and what is your action in this field?
So we are not dealing with the recycling of the cells itself, but we are on the higher level, so meaning that we are trying to use the cells as much as possible instead of recycling cells that are not yet completely used. This is our mission. And to do this, what we do is that we provide batteries to our customers. And once those batteries have a problem, we can repair them, take away the cells that have a problem, replace them by other cells. And at the end of life, for example, for mobility, after you reach a certain capacity, you will want to change the battery. But you can still store some energy in those cells. So we take away easily with this design, we take away the cells easily out. And we use them in second life application like off-grid storage or applications like that.
Thank you so much. Aurelian, you are passionate and engaged marine engineer, CTO of your company.
Yes.
You will bring a lot of available energy offshore to the shore. Tell me how.
Yeah, yes, thanks for the introduction. Yes, at Farwind, we identified the fact that the second renewable energy source on this planet cannot be harvested nowadays because we don't have the technology to do that. And this renewable energy source is offshore wind, but far offshore, very far from the coast. Why can't we do that with floating wind turbines? Because it's too deep, too far, so the cost becomes tremendous. So to address this challenge, we are developing at Farwind a new technology that we call an energy ship. It's basically a sailing ship under which we have water turbines that produce electricity. And with our technology, we couple energy production and storage because we have to do it. It's not grid connected, so we need energy storage. And for that storage, we have several options. So we have a version of the ship which has batteries. And we are very seriously considering second life batteries for this application. And we also have a version of the ship in which we do hydrogen. We produce hydrogen. And so we have the ship which is empty that leaves the port. We go offshore, we charge the reservoir, the energy reservoirs, and then we come back and we unload the energy.
Okay. Well, you speak to my heart. Hydrogen is one of my favorite topics.
Great.
So indeed, for those who don't know, well, hydrogen is a very versatile energy carrier. You can store energy in form of hydrogen, reproduce energy from hydrogen, or use it directly, should it be in mobility, industry, creating synthetic fuels. So yeah, and maybe you saw recently the policymakers has announced a big plan for hydrogen. Maybe we can talk also about the policy support, because as for now, the CO2 prices or other market available incentives are not that enough, if I can put it that way, to support the transition at the full scale. How do you see the place of policy support in your business? What are the timelines? What are the tools which are needed for you to thrive at scale?
So I should say that so far we've been fortunate because we received significant support from the policymakers, and so we got grants and help from BPI France, Région Pays de la Loire, several authorities, and now and also fortunately we have niche markets that we believe that we can start with, and for which we are commercial or almost commercial. So for these markets, the support that we need is that there are French islands in the Caribbean, and in these places, it's energy, so it's complicated. We have to go through, our technology needs to be written in the law that it can be used for the power of, for powering these islands. And this is a long process. So we've started talking with the authorities to get this process completed and to be able to deploy a demonstrator in a few years from now.
Amazing. So subsidies for the first, and then you reach the cost competitiveness quite soon, and
yeah,
the star is the limit.
It seems feasible for us, so that's the plan.
Thank you, Aurélien. Mark, I know that with all your pedigree, you have an extensive experience in energy fields, and you're also advisor to the United Nations, the British government, and you name it. So I think we agree that the energy transition challenges and storage in particular subscribes in a holistic vision. So it's small puzzle of the entire picture. How do you promote this holistic vision at those governmental bodies, and what is needed to be done to accelerate?
Yes, using that analogy of the jigsaw puzzle, all around the world, not just in Britain, governments are addressing one piece of the jigsaw puzzle at a time. And by doing one piece of the jigsaw puzzle at a time, you end up with a picture that doesn't join together. And then you try and make it join together, and it doesn't work, and it's too costly, too difficult to manage. The energy transition is essentially very, very simple. You're replacing power stations with renewables. So you're replacing dispatchable, which means on demand, variable on demand. You're replacing dispatchable and inertial. That's the momentum of large rotating machines, gives a stability to the system. And you're placing those with intermittent and asynchronous. So wind, solar, interconnectors, batteries, they're all connected through DC links. None of them has inertial, natural inertia. So none of them can give the stability to the system. So therefore, in trying to add that stability back into the system, grids and governments around the world are looking at the symptoms of this instability and dealing with the symptoms one at a time instead of dealing with the cause. And by dealing with them one at a time, it makes it very difficult for comprehensive solutions to be implemented. So I'm talking with them consistently about the need for this comprehensive solution, a much simpler contracting framework that is much simpler for the grid control systems and control rooms to manage, because then they can manage, for example, if large-scale solar or wind is connected through large-scale long-duration inertial storage to the grid, then they can consider the storage and the renewable generation together as though they were a power station and handle that in a very, very simple way, back to the very resilient and cheap grids that we had 10 or 15 years ago. Whereas nowadays, in Britain, we're paying this year £3.5 billion more for the non-energy costs of running a grid that is carrying less energy than 10 years ago. And that is £1.5 billion more than it was a year ago, which was £1 billion more than it was a year before that. It's going up exponentially, the costs of doing that. And the moment your renewable penetration hits 16% or thereabouts, your costs start rocketing. If you're dealing with it piece by piece, without large-scale, long-duration, and inertial storage. If you are integrating it all together and dealing with it as a holistic way, your costs will not rocket in that way.
Well, thank you for highlighting this important idea of the cost escalation. And even if you say the transition is simple, there are a lot of complicated things, balancing the grid, integrating renewables, and you mentioned batteries. So batteries for sure will play an important role there.
It is simple. It's like a doctor. If he's treating all the symptoms of a complicated pathology, he's treating dozens and dozens of different things. And the pills and the potions and lotions that he's giving will react against each other in some ways, and he'll get all sorts of physiological problems in the patient. But if he actually treats the cause, he's only doing one treatment and he's solving all of the symptoms. So it really is simple.
Well, the diagnosis is clear, but the treatment is still under construction, I would say. Alexander, for the batteries, what will be the use cases? So Mark mentioned the importance of it. I can only sign for it too. You said the first use cases already ongoing or in progress, and what are your extension plans? Is there any plan there to do the balancing of the grid and helping integration of more renewables in the system?
At our scale, we are not doing that yet. It's much bigger batteries than what we are operating. We are a very small startup. We are only about 20 people at the moment. Huh?
Yet.
We were 4 or 6 months ago. So if we follow the curve, it's good. But we are too small to go on the big markets of storage energy grid or even cars. So we try to prove, what we are trying to prove is that there's a circular economy that's possible based on the fact that lithium-ion cells can be considered as the consumable. So at the moment, on what we see, the complete battery is considered as consumable, so that when it's finished, when it doesn't work anymore, we destroy the complete battery. What we want to prove is that there's a way to dismantle properly the batteries and exchange the elements between them, and to close the loop. So we are more doing a demonstrator at this scale, where we operate the batteries with our clients, which are mainly micromobility operators, renting some scooters on the street. You see the Lime, the Dots, the Pony, and all those brands. We are renting the battery to them, providing a very clean solution, because we take care of taking back the battery when there's a problem, and using a second life usage for their cells.
Yeah, thank you so much. You also highlighted the fact that, well, you're providing a cleaner energy source for small applications. At the same time, we need to deploy those applications at scale. So there is, a link between those two processes: decarbonization of energy production, storage, and distribution, and electrification and decarbonization of end users. So this requires parallel developments on the both sides. And maybe I can go turn to you or Liane and say, okay, you are targeting already, the energy production, the energy storage. What other technologies and what other processes should be clean ones, of course, should be deployed and scale in order to help your business to materialize at the very high scale and in a very short time period?
Well, our technology has a key advantage with respect to scalability, is that once the chip will be fully developed and ready and validated, it doesn't need authorization to be deployed. And this is a huge difference with conventional renewable energy converters. In France, to give an example, nowadays it takes between 5 to 8 years to build a new wind farm. Whereas with our technology, as we are mobile energy converters, once the ship is built, sails from the shipyard, then it can start operating, and you don't need to ask any authorization to nobody. So that's also something that had been very important for me when I decided to start this company, is that this potential of scalability and to develop and to deploy very rapidly the technology, of course, once it will be ready.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I see this common ground of scalability with what you said. There's, going exponential and growing your teams and use cases and storing energy, renewable energy at scale. I see the time running, and maybe, well, this is a general question for three of you. There are a lot of change makers in the room who made all their way from all across the globe, bringing this flame of fighting for the energy transition and climate change cause. What is your personal story you want to share with them? What is the message you want them to get out of this session?
My message is that people aren't thinking big enough. I don't even think that Elon Musk is thinking big enough. He doesn't realize how much storage there is needed. Because the amount of storage that is needed is your total demand plus 10 or 15% for supply margin, minus your zero carbon generation. And that means in the UK today, assuming we get rid of, we swap out all our fossil fuels for renewables and keep nuclear as it is, we would need today 50 gigawatts of storage. In France, it would be rather less than that because of the nuclear. You'd probably need 20 to 30 gigawatts of storage. Multiply that over the world. The UK is 1% of the world's electricity consumption. Then you start increasing that with electricity helping with the decarbonization of other sectors. You need to think really big. And this scale of technology, it needs to be done now. It's long lead time products. So unless with any technology, including pumped hydro, including liquid air, and all the other large-scale, long-duration inertial storage, all long lead time items, rather like the wind farms in France. And unless you start now, you will not have enough by 2050 to achieve the energy transition. So it's got to be done now. It's got to be done at huge scale. So the investors who get in and building the first of a kind now and investing in the company at this sort of stage have enormous upside potential.
Thank you so much. So what I gave from you is a dream big. Alexander, what about you?
Yeah, when we show what we are doing to people aware of battery, the question we have is always, but why don't everybody does it already? It looks simple, so why is it done? And people tend to question the fact that we don't solder the cells together. They say, everybody is soldering the cells together, so why don't you do? And there's a problem in your technology. And in fact, the only thing that we realized is that it's because we don't come from the battery industry, because we didn't know it was considered as impossible, that we went and just tried to do a solderless technology of batteries, and that worked. So in the end, just don't consider the status quo of the technology as given. Just try it.
Just try it. Just do it. I get it. Bring a fresh look to the status quo. Thank you so much. Aurélien?
It's really hard for me because I agree with you guys, and I'm not sure what I can add. Think big and really, really big. I fully agree with that. There is a very interesting study that was published like 4 years ago by Mark Jacobson. He's a professor in the US, in California. And he made a scenario, how could we replace all fossil fuels by renewable energy converters, right?
Yep.
And in his study, he showed that basically it's feasible, totally feasible, but we need to multiply the number of wind turbines by 40 in comparison to what it was in 2018. And at that time, there was already 400,000 wind turbines in the world. So it's a huge, huge, huge change. And then it's feasible technically, but we really need to organize seriously to achieve this objective. So yeah, we really have to think very, very big. And like you said also, I was a researcher before creating Farwind, and what I found very striking in the research role is that it's very conservative. And I used to be a researcher that was trying things different. And I heard very, very frequently, it's impossible, it cannot work. And I've always asked, why? Can you tell me? And most of the time, the people they cannot explain why it's not possible. And actually, it's just because it's possible. So, like I said, and we started Farwind because we didn't know that it was not possible, and seems possible. So I agree with you.
I would add to that, don't just think big, think strategically and think long term. Grids and governments and investors out there are looking for a quick return on their capital, a quick solution to the problem. For as long as they're looking for the quick solutions, they're not finding the strategic solutions. There are forecasts out there, Breakthrough Energy, Bill Gates and others have analyzed the American market. We've analyzed the European markets, and National Grid's analyzed the British market. Basically, you need to more than triple the size of the electricity grid just to decarbonize it. And that's before you start to support the decarbonization of any other industry. But that's only if you do it without thinking strategically, without building in our sorts of technologies at the right scale, and without using the right technologies for the right things. There are too many things that are being used in the wrong place. So trying to use batteries are absolutely great up to 20, 40 megawatts, up to 1 to 2 hours. Trying to use it too big for that, you're building in cost and complexity and problems.
I
and so
absolutely agree with
goes
you.
on.
There will there is a need to adapt a solution, and maybe to what you said, Aurélien, I would add, like consider all solutions. You know, you target all the different areas of the energy storage puzzle. For the long-term storage, big quantity of energy. For the scooters, and small amount of energy be usable here and now, and this unlocking this enormous potential for offshore. On this, gentlemen, thank you so much. I give those messages for me, dream big. challenge the status quo, consider all solutions, and go for it. Nothing is impossible. Thank you for that. And please welcome me in giving a big round of applause for Mark, Jan, and Alexander. Thank you so much, gentlemen.